Hey, so welcome to the second video in the elbow series of our martial arts techniques for the Flow Training program. If you haven't seen the first video, I strongly recommend you do, because that's where we're introducing the basics of this technique, and now we're adding on top of that. All right, so this is part two. So in part one, we talked about the basics, the 3 steps to performing a simple elbow technique, which was hands up, that's not part of it, but hands are always up. You're straightening your hand, you're lifting your elbow up here, and then you're bringing it across, right? Those were your 3 steps. And at this point, I'm hoping you've actually practiced and repeated this a few times at this point. Now we're going to introduce a step forward, and that's going to help you generate a little more power on your elbow. It's also going to give you a little bit more distance in your range. And then we're going to talk about some angles that we can use and all the different angles we can use for the elbow strike, okay? So for this step, in your stance, I actually want you to have your left foot forward, just so that there's a little bit of a sense of you kind of moving forward with this. Remember, in the first movement videos that we introduced in this program, we actually talked about moving forward from our stance, right, and moving back. So we're just kind of still using that same concept, those same basic movements, but now we're introducing them with the striking techniques, right? So hands are up. Now, for this step, what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to step so far that you need to drag your back foot. All you're doing is you're taking this tiny little step forward. Okay, for this, eventually maybe we'll introduce ways to move a little bit further ahead. But for this particular time, I just want you to step 6 inches, maybe a foot, all right? And as you step, you're hitting with the elbow. So you step, hit, and then you come right back. You step, hit, come right back. As you get more comfortable with this, your goal is actually to time it so that as your foot hits the ground, your elbow hits your hand. So you're timing it so both basically happen at the same time, okay? Obviously, if the timing's not perfect, it's not a huge deal, but the goal is to step first, hit second, or have them timed so that they're happening at the same time. And as always, switch your stance and then work the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to repeat a few things in every striking video. Always exhale as you strike. Always make sure you have the right intention, that you're not doing it half-assed. You're actually really focused and really setting that right intention, that intention of power and strength and confidence, right? And the last thing is always working both sides. The left side will always feel more awkward. It will always feel a little bit weaker if you're right-handed, but that's okay. It's okay, but it's important to balance and to work both sides. All right, so now, same thing as before, we're actually going to do a drill where I want you to repeat this 10 times each side, and then you can run with it, okay? So let's do it together. So, hands are up. You're going to step and hit 10 times on this side. Ready? So step with the left, hit with the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, and then you're going to switch your stance. Hands are up. Step with the right, hit with the left. 1, bring it back. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and then come back to your original stance. Repeat that as often as you want. Now, you don't have to do it now if you don't want to. We're going to be going into angles next. So you can either pause and repeat a few times, or you can keep watching and do it afterwards, okay? So the next thing we're going to talk about are angles. So what I love about elbows is all the different angles you can create just by changing the direction of the movement of your shoulder joint, right? So the thing about elbows is, let's say now we've been learning the straight across one. Now, in order for this to work, it means that my target needs to be right here. It needs to be available, right? So my target needs to be right in front of me this way. What if, right, and this happens a lot, is what if the person is guarding themselves like this, right? What if they have everything's covered? Or what if the person's taller than me, right? I need to be able to create new angles to be able to go after different targets, okay? So the first one we're going to look at is the uppercut elbow. So an uppercut elbow is basically coming from the bottom and going straight up. When would I use this is if I see, first of all, that the person is super well protected on the sides of their head like that, or maybe the person's taller than me and I can't really come up this way and reach them. So instead, I'm gonna come up from the bottom and try to surprise them. All right? So with this one, I found very early on when I was practicing Muay Thai and learning these techniques, someone called it a name. I can't remember the name and I don't want to even try to butcher it, but it was basically, imagine a woman putting a flower behind her ear, right? And someone else described it as someone just kind of combing their hair back with their fingers. And that's kind of the idea, is you're just bringing it up straight this way, right? So again, you can still use that same blade idea of opening your hand, but rather than coming straight across, you're going to come straight up this way. It's not going to feel as strong as this one, but you'd be surprised about how much power you can get with the right intention behind it, okay? So again, it's the same idea. I'm opening the hand, my hands are up, I'm opening the hand, except now I'm just coming straight across. And on this one, I'm actually turning my body a little bit just because it's going to give me a little bit more elevation and a little bit more power. And it kind of comes naturally to do that, all right, to feel my obliques and my abs working a little bit on this one. So, and again, to practice, I can use my hand again, except now my hand, instead of being here, is over here where my target would be. So my hand comes up, boom, and then I bring it back. Elbow comes up. See, and once you hit your hand, suddenly that technique that didn't feel that strong, wow, there's a decent amount of power there, right? And then again, do the same thing on this side. So hand comes up, boom, and I hit. Hand comes up, hit. Hand comes up, and hit. All right? So like before, we're going to repeat this one 10 times each. Okay? So hands up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then the next side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so that's your up elbow. Now I'm gonna introduce this next one. This one's a lot trickier and probably not as easy to learn, as easy to use, but I just want to introduce the idea of it and let you play around with it. All right, so this one is more about bringing the elbow up and then coming down this way. Harder to use, requires much more flexibility in your shoulder. Now, where would I use this one? Earlier on, we talked about, let's say someone's grabbing me, right, and someone's holding me. Or what if someone's a little bit taller than me and I need to reach up? So in this case, I would bring it up and then come across this way, right? So I might be aiming for the temple up here, or like I said, I might actually just come down and drop it down. In another video, we're actually going to talk about the different targets for these elbow strikes. But now I just kind of want you to feel coming up, bringing it up, and then dropping it down. Bringing it up, dropping it down. This one's a little bit harder to do on your hand, so we're not going to bother with that. But I just kind of want you to play around with it and realize that with elbows, there's all kinds of different angles. You can use a diagonal, you can come up and bring it down, you can come up this way. In some cases, you can use a reverse elbow. Some people like to hit forward this way. There are so many different variations and ways that these can be used. But at first, you kind of have to get comfortable with the basics, and then you can start experimenting with all those other different angles. Okay? So that's it for this video. Like I said, 2 things you want to practice right now are the step forward and hit, and then also the uppercut elbow. And then eventually you can even introduce the step with the uppercut elbow. That's all up to you. All right? 10 times each side. Repeat that as often as possible. In the next video, we're going to talk about the different applications for the elbow. What types of situations would I use this? What am I actually aiming for, right? So that's going to be the 3rd part of this series. So that's it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave me a message, and I look forward to the next video. Peace.